Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Statesman Podcast, where we unpack Zimbabwe politics, power, and the unforeseen forces shaping the future of the country. To those who are new, my name is Nelson Machka. Before we begin, a big thank you to everyone subscribing, commenting, and sharing our content. Your engagement keeps this platform alive. If you are turning in for the first time, welcome aboard. This is where we decode the mechanics of Zimbabwean politics. And I am the boss here. Now, let's talk about what is unfolding inside ZANU-PF and why it matters. So for the past week, things have been a bit quiet, too quiet, but beneath that calm, there is movement. Like some would say that a quiet before the storm. So there is tension and there is a new kind of opposition that is emerging. And it is coming from nowhere else but from within the ruling party itself. And it is being spearheaded by the Vice President of the party, the all too powerful Vice President, General Chuwenga. So, after years of systematically dismantling external opposition, everyone is aware of how the judiciary, how the police, how the military, how the Zimbabwe Election Commission, how every state institution has been used to dismantle Zimbabwean opposition. Now we are at a time in 2025 where opposition is non-existent in effect. In as much as the opposition should shoulder some blame for that, but you cannot ignore the machinations of ZANU-PF, the commitment to make sure that they dismantle the opposition. So, after years of systematically dismantling external opposition, ZANU-PF now faces its own internal descent. And this time, the battlefield isn't in the streets or on the courts. It's within parliament. A couple of weeks ago, it was in the Politburo. And this past week, it is within parliament, within the party, and within the state apparatus itself. Right, this is what I want to describe as the Mutodi moment, when accountability becomes treason. So last week, Energy Mutodi, yes, that Energy Mutodi who was once the Deputy Minister of Information, Communications and Technology, he stood up in Parliament and he accused officials in the Ministry of Finance of demanding 5 to 10. This happened last week. And he accused the Permanent Secretary of demanding 5 to 10% kickbacks to process treasury payments. So that was not just political theater. That was a direct strike at the patronage system that oils the machinery of power in Zimbabwe. So by calling out George Guamatanga, the powerful finance ministry secretary, permanent secretary, okay, to those who are not aware of the arrangement of bureaucrats in Zimbabwe, in the organogram of the public sector in Zimbabwe, at the top, we have got the minister. Below the minister, you have got the deputy minister. Below these are political appointees. And below the deputy minister, what you have is the permanent secretary. And from the permanent secretary, you have line directors. But the permanent secretary is the one who is the head of the ministry in terms of administration. He is the who is who. He is the technocrat. He is the skill behind the ministry, is the one who drives the ministry. So the function of the minister is to draft policy, is to make policy, to come up with policy, the direction the ministry goes. And this is to support the national project or the destination the president intends to take the country. And then the minister comes because he understands the mind of the president, so he makes the policy. The deputy minister is more or less useless in Zimbabwe. That's why they have been caused to remove that position of the deputy minister. Because the deputy minister can only do what the minister asks him to do. That's the first thing. Then the second thing, if the minister somehow is absent, maybe he's traveled or she has traveled, or maybe the minister incapacitated, the deputy minister does not become the acting minister. The president takes a minister from another ministry to do double duties, to be the minister of the ministry where he is, and to also be an acting minister in the ministry with an absent minister. So that is the structure of bureaucracy in Zimbabwe. So by calling out George Gwamatanga, what Mutodi did, he touched the nerve center of state capture, because that's where all the monies, all the finances are dispersed from. And that's exactly where loyalty and corruption intersect in Zimbabwe. And what was the response? So within days, what we saw yesterday, on the 7th of October, was that Mutodi was removed as chairperson of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Budget, Finance and Investment Promotion. And who replaces him? Tafaza Mugwadi, another ZANU-PF MP. I don't know if this is accurate that Tafaza Mugwadi replaced him, or it was just another piece that was not using facts, but I haven't fact-checked this. So you may assist me in the comment section if anyone can confirm whether it's true that Tafaza Mugwadi replaced Energy Mutodi. And Tafaza Mugwadi is another ZANU-PF MP who was also outspoken the previous week, grilling the Justice Minister Ziyambi over the Constituency Development Fund. I enjoyed listening the point that he had to put across, because in a way he was not doing more or less different to what Mutodi was also did. So it is so ironical for me that Mutodi and Mugwadi, they more or less did the same thing, but Mutodi was removed and on his position was replaced by Tafaza Mugwadi, who was so discontent, frustrated and mad that the Minister of Finance has been lying to them over and over again over the issue of the Constituency Development Fund. Because somehow in Zimbabwe, the understanding now about politics is the member of parliament is supposed to bring development to a constituency, and especially in the rural communities. But constitutionally in Zimbabwe, a member of parliament's duty is that of a legislature. They make legislation and they also hold accountable the executive. Those are the main duties. So in a situation in Zimbabwe, it's understandable why we have the Constituency Development Fund, the CDF fund. Because then the members of parliament, they get to have the capacity to go back to their constituency. Because when they campaign, these people, they actually promise things, development projects, that we are going to do A, B, C, and D if you vote me into power. And now you are being confronted with a situation where you have members of parliament who have been given this fund in 2023, not all of them, few of them. And you are also a member of parliament who has not yet received, despite the fact that you have also applied for the money. Okay, I am going to insert a clip of Tafaza Mugwadi at the end to those who are going to watch up to the end. But if you don't want to watch up to the end and you want to listen to what Mugwadi said, you can just fast forward until you see the clip playing. There you will hear him. I enjoyed watching it, and I hope you also enjoy watching it. And I think it brings a breath of fresh air. If ZANU-PF can hold itself accountable if they can question their leadership, then that is the way to go. That is the way to go. But it's not as easy as saying it like I am saying now. As we have seen, if you ask Energy Mutodi, he will tell you never speak out against corruption. So what's happening here is it looks like disciplinary reconfiguration, a form of elite management that is meant to remind everyone who really controls parliament. So Mutodi's removal wasn't about decorum at all. It was about control. You can't act out of control. You can't act out of the script. Because in Zimbabwe's political economy, if you expose corruption, you threaten the network that sustains power. And when you threaten that network, what does the system do? It closes ranks. I want you to remember Louis Mutodi and Godfrey Tseningamu, and what did they tell you? What that tells you about the price of speaking out in ZANU-PF. So the story of Mutodi is not new. In 2020, these two guys, Louis Mutodi and Godfrey, they launched what they called the Youth Against Corruption campaign. They named and shamed cartels linked to the political elite, exposing how state capture operated through tenders, fuel cartels, and foreign currency allocations. And after they were removed, after they were expelled from ZANU-PF, not for lying, but for naming names, that's when I said to myself, hold on, in as much as people speak of Kudakwashe Tagwere as Queen Bee, that's when I said, no man, there is a king here. And the king is the president himself. Because when you touch Kudakwashe Tagwere, you have touched not only him, but the president. Because Kudakwashe Tagwere didn't have any power in the party, didn't have any position in the party. But for naming him, the party sacrificed its youth leadership, vibrant and very promising youth leadership, especially on Louis Mutodi. I do like the guy, I must admit. I met him once, we had a conversation. It was a closed conversation and I really enjoyed talking to him. So I do regard him actually as someone who's very much promising in ZANU-PF. Sadly, it's not many of them that are like him. There are some very bright people in ZANU-PF, but unfortunately they are very few. And their path to top positions within the party is not very much open. Right, so let's continue with the script. So what that told us is that it told us everything about the nature of ZANU-PF's internal logic. You can condemn corruption in general terms, but the moment you identify the corrupt, you have crossed a red line. So in ZANU-PF, corruption isn't a vice to be eliminated. It's an instrument of governance. It keeps the system loyal, lubricates patronage, and it also silences dissent. Like they say, if you fight corruption, corruption will also fight back. I listened to an episode, I think it's Citizens Network, what. It's another podcast. And I think the interviewer was Costa Ngomo. And they did an episode, I think their last episode, I was listening to it about 2 days ago or yesterday, I can't remember. And Transparency International, I think, the director in Zimbabwe was the one who was on call for interview. And he really spoke at length and in depth on how things are happening in Zimbabwe. And he mentioned that if you fight corruption, corruption will also fight back. Which is why someone like him cannot really go into mentioning names and casting aspersions and allegations, because definitely they don't have the resources to fight back, because the people that are corrupt, they are loaded with cash. They are very much loaded with cash, and they can hire the most expensive of lawyers which makes it difficult for anyone else, which explains why Mutodi attempted to retract his statement where he had alleged that the permanent secretary and the Minister of Finance is corrupt and he is seeking bribes and kickbacks. So Mutodi now has become a victim. He has joined the same list, the Mutodi line of casualties, punished not for dishonesty but for daring to point at the rot that is within the system. So the deeper game here, I think, is the 2030 project and definitely institutional capture. So let's zoom out for context here. So Mutodi's removal, it didn't happen in isolation. No. It did not happen in isolation. It fits into a proper architecture of institutional capture where the separation of powers is collapsing in favor of executive control. So even the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Mdenda himself, has come under scrutiny. This decision to remove energy without due process, according to Tendai Bit, it violates Parliament's constitutional oversight role under Section 119, which mandates MPs to hold the executive accountable. Now, why this overreach? So I connect it to what I have been labeling all along as the 2030 project. This is not Vision 2030, the economic plan that we all know, but it's a political project to entrench Emmerson Mnangagwa's rule beyond 2028. Every move points to an effort to tighten the political ecosystem ahead of a possible third-term bid. So in that sense, Mutodi wasn't just exposing graft. He was disrupting the financial bloodstream that fuels the whole project. And that made him politically radioactive. Pisa. Anova apisa zokusabatika zokuti let's get rid of this guy. He is radioactive. So all of this that is happening because previously the bench which used to attack, expose corruption, it was the opposition bench. Now the opposition has been dealt a heavy blow. It has been collapsed. There is no opposition in Zimbabwe. So what happens? The fire turns inward. So for many decades, ZANU-PF devoted its energy to destroying opposition politics through infiltration, through recalls, co-optation, and propaganda. And what happened? It succeeded. But as history shows, from Kenya's KANU to South Africa's ANC, once a dominant party eliminates all external competition, it becomes its own opposition. But I will excuse ANC for this because they haven't managed to eliminate external competition. They did for some time before the most recent previous elections. They did because they were the dominant party. And it's only in 2024 when they failed to get the majority of votes in a presidential election. Now that's what has become problematic for them now. So when that happens to a political party, when you don't have any opposition, it's the nature of politics. You become your own opposition. That is exactly what we are witnessing now. So Mutodi's confrontation, Mugwadi's defiance, and the quiet grumblings of other MPs, these are early signs of elite fragmentation. And this has been happening within ZANU-PF for a bit of some time. It's not ideological rebellion, it's structural stress within a hegemonic party that has lost its external rivals. Just like Julius Malema would always cancel that after fighting foreigners, we will turn on each other. And that's exactly what happens in politics. It's the nature of politics. So when opposition politics collapses, factional politics becomes the new democracy. And that is why these small eruptions inside parliament, they matter. They are not only limited to gossip, they are symptoms. The symptoms of a fatigued regime the kind that often precedes major political transitions. So the succession storm and the politics of paranoia is what we are seeing driving all of this, because beneath all of these lies, the unresolved Mnangagwa Chiwenga succession question is two centers of power, two factions competing for the post-2028 future. Each uses state institutions, your treasury, your parliament, the security sector, as tools of political warfare. So Mutodi's fate, therefore, is not disciplinary. It's very much symbolic. It signals to others where the invisible fault lines are lying. In this environment, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, accountability becomes treason, paranoia becomes governance. Right? So, what are we really witnessing here? Right? The same system that destroyed the opposition is now turned inward. It is now consuming itself. ZANU-PF has become both the government and the opposition, a self-contained ecosystem where loyalty is currency and truth is punishable. Mutodi, Matutu, Senengam, they are not outliers. They are early casualties of a political order that can no longer manage its contradictions. So, because here is the truth. When power stops being accountable, when it stops being accountable, it becomes insecure. And when insecurity rules, pages replace politics. Now, this has been happening over and over again. It's not a Zimbabwean phenomenon. Everywhere. That's what it happens. When insecurity rules, pages replace politics. So, Zimbabwe today stands at a dangerous inflection point where political capture is mutated into institutional cannibalism. But we saw what happened over the past week, where soldiers were gifted with vehicles. They are supposed to reach, I think, 700 or over 500 vehicles. It's all part of this cannibalism, eating into each other's power base, neutralizing each other. So the ruling party isn't just fighting dissent, it's also fighting itself. Now, as citizens, I believe that our role is simple but very much vital: to refuse the normalization of illegality, to defend constitutionalism, and to remember, as one scholar once put it, a mosquito can't cure malaria. You can't expect a system built on corruption to cure itself of it. Like what Albert Einstein once said, you cannot solve a problem from a position where you created the problem from. You have to move from that position so that you will be able to solve that problem. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Statesman Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comment section, are we witnessing accountability from ZANU-PF or the beginning of its collapse? Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, we move.
Masikanda kanaka mubati wechigaro ndinokutendai nemukana wamandipa uno, ndichitenda gurukota redu nemhinduro yavatipa. Ndichikumbirawo mukana uno uyu kuti mubvunzo wandichabvunza nemi mubati wechigaro mundipewo mukana kuti nditsanangurire kuna leader of government business wedu kuti vanzwisise nyaya iyi. Regai nditi honorable chef, nyaya iyi haichatifadzi kana ndichida kudaro. So, all right, honorable minister, nyaya iyi tichida kutaura chokwadi, kurova imbwa tisina kuiga mpinyi. Nyaya iyi haichaita. Kusaita kwendinoreva mukuru ndokokuti munorangarira kuti vana vari munomu mutakapinda muno mudare muna 2023 musi wa23 August gore iroro hatina kuwana CDF ende takashaya kuti tinonoudza vanhu kwatabva kuti tiri kumboti gore rino tashaya nokuda kwei. 2024 akauya kubva muna January kusvika muna December akapera hatina chatakawana. Iyi nyaya ishefu ndokuti tikuudzei nokuti haingandifadzi inini ndisina vamwe vari padhuze pangu vachiwana zvoita sekuti inini amene outcast. Chef iko zvino tamuna 2025 makore akutoita matatu tisina, asi tinodiwe kwetinobva uku kumaconstituency ndobva kubwera wese vanondida kuti ndiuyeko everyday. Zvatakawirirana vanozviziva zvinoda kuitwa neCDF zviri kuitwa kune mamwe maconstituency kwedu hakuna. Mapepa akazoenda kare chef mungaenda mukanoona mukanzwisisa zviriko, asi kuadhimini kwamuri kutaura chef taendazve nezuro taivako anzi yatinoudzwa ndeimwe chete yokuti mari haisi kuuya ende kumwe pacho takatombozwa nerunyero kupe kuti nyaya yemakaikurukura kudare guru imiwo muchitopushawo kuti kune vamwe vasati vawana kuti takangozvinzwa nemakuhwa tikafara zvitingaitanzwa kuti inyaya yabva kwamuri. Apa takuidzorera kwamuri chef kwamunosimbopusha kuya variko vana vakawanda vasina kuwanda ena hazvisina chimiro takutopedza gore rino iri tisina. Saka inini ndakazvimirira sahonorable Gwadi iyi chef nyaya iyi yakundizvungura chero ndichiuya kuno ndoita sekuti ndiri kuperekedza vamwe asi mabasa achinoitwako kwangu kusina. Mapepa akaenda vamwe vane mapepa ari kuuya mashure. Apa handisi kupopana chef ndiri kutaura ndakatsamwa mapepa akasaenda evamwe mapepa akatoenda kumashure unotozwa umwe achitokuti yako isati yauya reo yangu yakauya asi mapepa angu akaenda kare pasina. Saka iyi nyaya ishe kutaura chokwadi haifadzi because panozoti muno mudare gurukota redu rezvemari rinouya munoroti sezvati makatiita kubhulawayo gore rapera kuti CDF yatouya tarili tsamba yakatenderera nyika yedu ikatenderera magrupu emaconstituency chero nokwenyu ichinzi CDF yakuuya gore rapera pasei haina kuuya. Hakuna tsamba yakazoteera mashure chiti hatina kuzovapa. Saka iko zvino ya2025 yacho yakapuwa vamwe vari kunzi ya2024 hamuna kuiakaunda makadya ndozvokutaura kuvanhu nokuti tekila yakamboenda ichiti takakupai haina kuzodzoka ichiti haina kuzopiwa. Saka iroro chef basa iroro kutaura chokwadi zvakurwadza handidi kunyeperai. Iye mazvita